Welcome everyone to ScreenFish Radio. I'm so glad you could join us for a special episode of our podcast. This week we will be recapping our adventures of Tiff 22, and I am thrilled to have our key team members who are on the ground and everywhere. We were all over the festival this year. Seun, Olowo-Ake, and Jason Tai. Thank you. First of all, thank you both so much for all your work, and I am really excited about this. And Shay, did I say your name right? Just did it
It's
again.
okay. I wasn't expecting perfect. It's, it's fine.
I'm doing my best. Um, no, I'm really thankful for you both, and we had a great festival. A lot of things to talk about this year. What we wanted to do was have a bit of a recap, things we learned at the Toronto International Film Festival. Before we get doing this, before we get started, I wanted to say a quick word of thanks because one of the things I learned that I won't, that I mean, we'll talk about this stuff too, but I was so amazed and so thankful for all the help we got from all the publicists, from the organizations that helped us out, from Tarot, PR, Elevation, Cinematic Red, Mongrel, Route 504, our friends at In the Seats. There's so many organizations that really helped us out throughout this. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you to all of you for making this festival possible, giving us the opportunities we had, because it really was something special. But um, first of all, I mean, before we talk about what we learned, I'd love to hear about your experience. Shay, JT, how was your TIFF this year?
It was good. It was my first ever, well, first-ish ever TIFF. I went to one screening one time in like 2019. But other than that, my first full experience at the festival. And I really had a lot of fun. Like my biggest thing was because I live in Scarborough, going down there every day. But other than that, I enjoyed like being downtown and being like on Festival Street, seeing the music and the movies and everything was really interesting.
Did you go to any of the concerts?
No, I was waiting for you actually one time. So I just sat out when a guy was rehearsing. I don't remember his name even. He was really good. But I just sat out there and I was listening to his band play and I was like, "This is nice."
Oh, right outside that was when we met at the A&W.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's such a cool vibe. Isn't it
Mhm.
such a cool like there's just something so unique about it. I That's really neat. Um, Jason, what about you?
Yeah, it was really good fun. I didn't even know there was concerts or anything, but yeah, it was really good. It was my first year like accredited and getting a bunch of tickets and being a press. Really exciting. They treat you really well, I think. And then just going there and then watching movies and being like in that energy is pretty good. It's a good vibe. And then especially after I think it was my second showing, I decided I was gonna like stay there for 2 nights to watch like some Midnight Madness, and yeah, overall it's really good. A lot of great movies this year too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say it makes a difference. I stayed down for 2 nights as well. My gosh, it makes a difference. Oh,
Yeah,
I guess that's something I learned. I learned it was expensive to do, but I was so glad I did it, if only for 2 nights. Because that travel is, I mean, every day it's killer. It's killer. It is a grind.
mm-hmm.
Um, Forget the films, but just being down there for 9 a.m. and then being there till 11 p.m. or whatever. It's tough.
Mhm.
Yeah, I had a great year this year. I was looking at my list. Looks like my final total is 28 films for
That,
myself,
Yeah.
and it's that's a lot of movies. But I thought actually most of them I really liked.
Mhm.
So it was interesting. I did a bit of a ranking system. I won't go through it all now because that's a whole lot of movies to rank. But I was looking through it and I thought, there are very few that I thought I didn't enjoy that. I think there was a lot of I thought, and for their first year back, being on the ground after. I mean, I guess they were on the ground last year, but it was still sort of a hybrid because of COVID and whatnot. And the year before, oh my goodness, the first 2 years ago was so lonely. It was. I remember saying to Alicia, we were sitting out in the back deck watching movies, and I was like, "This is just like my normal life." It's like this is not a festival,
Yeah.
um, but it was so wonderful to be with people again.
Mm.
Before I hear from you, though, before I hear from you both, I can't wait to hear the things you learned at TIFF. We have some friends who sent us what they learned at TIFF as well, so I'm gonna let them share their stories right now.
Hi there, I'm Jolie from Toronto Film Files, and what I learned this year at TIFF 2022, was that it's okay to take breaks. It's okay to take things slow, and it's okay to, if you don't see as many films as maybe you would have liked to or hoped to have seen. It's very easy to get caught up in the thrill of the festival, the bustling energy, and seeing everyone's reviews and first takes and articles, coming through your social media pipelines. It certainly emboldens you to try to see as much as you can and do as much as you can, which is amazing. But at the same time, don't forget to take some rest, take some time to yourself, go slow. It's totally okay if you don't see as many films as you thought. Just fully enjoy the festival and all that it has to offer.
Well, if you didn't already figure out, this is probably a little bit of wish fulfillment, but as we sit here on the conclusion of the Toronto International Film Festival for this year of 2022, well, our friends over at ScreenFish obviously asked, what have we learned? And I mean, I think the first thing we've learned is just obviously don't get COVID, because I got COVID halfway through and it sucks. So still mask up, get your vaccines, get your boosters, stay safe, everybody, as always. But I think really at the end of the day, what we learned, especially over here in the seats, is just the value of community and sort of the importance that the film experience brings to that, and getting able to partake in that again, even if I did get sick. But again, it's an important thing, and it's one that we tend to forget about these days. But I guess the value of community, and probably film community, as it were, and appreciating that, and getting back to the cinema and supporting the arts and all sorts of cinema from all across the world, be it Canadian, be it independent, be it foreign, or just be it the mainstream stuff that we all love and enjoy. But get back out to the theaters and stay safe. And but as always, in case you need another source for your film news or entertainment, please visit us over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Or you can subscribe to our podcast, In the Seats With, where yours truly sits down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals who pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, and so very much more. And this is Dave Voigt, and I am signing out for now. I'm going to get back to the beach. Looks like the surf is kicking up. So we'll see you later.
Thank you so much to you all. I really appreciate you sending over those little clips. That was great. But I want to hear from our team as well, from our ScreenFish team. What did you learn at TIFF this year? Shay, let's start with you.
I have some really silly ones, so I'll just say those ones then. Not really silly, what kind of silly? Before TIFF started, we were all saying how crazy it is, and it was kind of crazy because I think I was anticipating some like proper madness, but then I realized doing it wasn't actually as bad as I had imagined. Like it was still like the beginning was a bit wonky because there was some stuff we couldn't plan out ahead because nobody really knew exactly what was going to be happening. But then actually doing it, you realize, oh, it's not the end of the world if I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, essentially. So that was one thing I learned, and it was just like going with the flow and enjoying the moments as they were coming.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. It's funny, like when we talk about it being like crazy, it's because everything's always moving. It's like, it reminds me of those little puzzles that you're not quite clear what it is, but you slide the little piece around it. You know the ones I'm talking about? It's like a square, and you move there's like an empty space. Anyway, but it just reminds me of this puzzle where the pieces are constantly sliding. Um, and the more into it you are, the more pieces are moving.
Mhm.
But but yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. It's not that everything is happening all at once. It's just that things are. It takes a while for things to settle, I guess.
I didn't realize how big it was, like how big a deal it was that we got accredited. I think what made it real was when I got that pass from you, and I was like, oh, I have my picture up and everything, and I got a lanyard. And then the package came, and we got to pick 20 movies, and I'm like, oh, that's a lot of movies. And I was like, this is great, and they treat you pretty well. I also learned something very different that I've never done in previous tests. Midnight Madness is insane. It's a whole different crowd. I don't know if either of you did any of this year.
Yeah.
You did one?
Yeah.
Okay, it's pretty insane. Yeah, people are clapping and like booing and like jumping up and down and doing all this crazy stuff. It's pretty good crowd. I think I definitely want to, after learning what I know now, do more Midnight Madnesses next year. And I was also planning on doing just horror movies in general. I think that would go well and something I definitely learned. And of course, booking a place for the first weekend would be nice, especially like seeing how big a difference it made staying there, and then like that they block off the road too for TIFF for only that like weekend. Pretty cool. And I didn't know about the press and industry thing, so I'll definitely do that next year and maybe do some interviews. Yeah, just like a whole lot that in hindsight I would have done that I'll do next year.
Did well? You had a good back half of the festival. Like I know that you were working in the middle of the week, but like you made the most of that last weekend. Now I know you were staying down there, but I think you saw about 6 or 7 films in those 2 days.
It was free on Friday, free on Saturday, and then one on Sunday, and then one on Thursday. And two of those were Midnight Madness.
Yeah.
Oh.
Eight movies in like 3 days span. Yeah.
How many Midnight Madness did you do, Shay?
I did one.
You
And
did
my
one.
crowd wasn't even that crazy. I felt sad, a bit sad about it. Like there was one beach ball I saw before the movie started and then it was gone. And no one was really like, it felt like a regular cinema like crowd. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I wish I had like a crazier crowd. But
Mine was insane. The second one I did was crazier. You know that Zendaya and Anne Hathaway commercial? We saw all week. It was
yeah.
like my crowd was pissed when they saw that. They were like, "Oh, great again!" And then they like ironically started clapping, and then they did boo, like they were booing, but it was like not the boo like boo. It was like an angry boo, like it pissed them off, like like they're mad at it or something. Like it was crazy. And then yeah, there was like a lot of jokes in the crowd too. But definitely a very different vibe from like a normal day showing.
Yeah, see, y'all are so young. I was like, I, the only Midnight Madness movie I saw was the Weird Al movie, and I went at noon the next day. I, I've been to Midnight Madness before, and it was awesome. Uh, but I'm like, I don't want to get out of a movie at 2:30 in the morning. Now, see, I would have had to drive home on the times the movie I wanted to see. JT, you were downtown. That makes a difference.
Yeah.
Like if that was one of the nights that I was staying over, I might have pulled it off because I would have been like 5 minutes from where I was staying, not an hour's drive away. But no, Midnight Madness is fun.
Mhm.
And I almost considered going to the Weird Al one at midnight, and apparently they had men in Hawaiian shirts doing choreographed dancing out on the street, and like, oh, it was apparently the atmosphere was just nuts. I was
Mhm.
watching some videos on it, and I'm like, oh man, that I would have loved that. Um, but yeah, yeah, that's good. Well, one of the things I learned was that Bulgari should not be making ads with Zendaya.
Why do people hate that ad so much? I don't understand.
You
Is
know
it
what?
because it was too
Like,
much?
I think it's just, well, you see it every show, you see it, but then it's like also like two really rich people, and there's a very rich company that's very expensive. So it's like no one can, very little people that can afford it are watching this movie, and then it's like it feels like a bunch of rich people made it, and like, oh, the poor people will love this movie or this little commercial. And like,
Okay, I have to say, every year there's an ad for something like that. Every year, I've seen ads for Maybelline. I've seen like every year there's an ad that just sort of happens, and you're like, okay, they're a sponsor. This is fine. I haven't seen a response to it like I have this year, where by the end people were just like, well, every screening I went to in the back half of the festival, like people were clapping, and it was like, but it like Jason was saying, it was like ironic, like bah, 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 bah.
this is so great. Yeah, I love
It
seeing.
was so much fun. But see, and it was funny because I came out of it, I'm like, that was either horrible or brilliant because the ad is so ridiculous. And Zendaya has to do she does a little J-Lo dance, and then Anne Hathaway puts on a bracelet, and you're like, oh, I'm wearing a snake, and there's a peacock. And then the ad is so utterly ridiculous, though, but everybody talked about it all week. I, I saw what I sent you guys the tweet. Somebody sent out. Saw some really great performances by duos, and it had like Glass Onion, had this movie, and then had the Bulgarian.
Yeah.
I saw a guy today on Twitter said went to a press screening and there wasn't a Bulgari ad in sight. Ah, it's a strange thing I learned, but I got to admit and I can't get the song out of my head, and it's driving me crazy. But that I learned that. I learned that.
I
Shit.
feel like I was just fun. Like when you said you couldn't get the song out of your head yesterday, I was like, what song? Because I didn't even remember there was a song in the ad. Because I was just fangirling. Oh my gosh, Anne Hathaway and Zendaya. Like every time they came on screen. I was like,
That's the
the
worst
Princess of
combination.
Genovia.
And they like look at each other, and it's like the strangest look. They go, and it's like, what's happening? What? A film by Paolo Sorrentino. It's like, should he be proud of this? Like, I don't know. But what else did you learn, Shay?
Oh, what else did I learn? Oh, I learned that people will stand outside when they see a crowd, even though they don't know why the crowd is there.
That's true.
Just
It's true.
like you don't know who you're waiting for, but I guess it's like on the off chance that you see someone you really care about and you just wait. And then they stand for hours just waiting. Like when I was in line for our Midnight Madness screening, I think a film had just finished, the one with Anya Taylor-Joy, The Menu.
Oh,
And we
that
were
was.
waiting
Yeah, I was
for
with
like
you.
our movie to start, and there was this like huge crowd just waiting outside. And we were like, I was like, I'm sure you have no idea what film this is gonna be now. And they were just standing there, and it was almost midnight, just like waiting with they see it and everything.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I know Jason can speak to this. One of the things about going to TIFF is you really never know who you're going to see, unless okay, the casual person has no idea. Like the person like if people that know, they know. But like if you're just sort of walking downtown and there's a crowd, people go, "Oh," and they pull out their camera. Um, I got a funny story for you both as well. So I was on my way into an interview, and there was a crowd outside. The interview was at a restaurant, and there was a red carpet. So clearly there were people that were going in there. And the interview I had was with some. It was the cast of Muru, and that's great. But I'm like, they're probably not waiting for them. Plus, those people are not coming out. I'm going in to see them. So I walked up to the crowd, and there were these three women there, and I said, what? Who are you waiting for? And they're like, oh, I forget who. I think Fred Armisen was in there or something. Oh, really? Okay, very cool. And then I quietly turned around. I didn't have my press badge on. I quietly turned around and tried to go through the door, and the door was locked. So I said to one of the people, I'm like, I'm here for an interview. And he says, oh, come with me. So he walks me right up the center of the red carpet. And these three women just go, and their jaws drop. And they said, and I came back out. They go, you're sneaky. You knew who we were waiting for. I said, I had no idea. I just knew who I was going to meet. And they're like, you were sneaky with us. It was really funny. They thought like I'd pulled off this great prank. I just want to know who they were waiting for. Oh man. Jason, what else did you learn?
Not much.
I'm done.
I was my first rush line with the Woman King, and first rush line ever, and the only one I did the whole week.
Was it your first rush line?
The one you came to at the end?
the one that we waited to for 2 hours, and you showed up when we were at the front of the line.
It's perfectly timed.
It must have been really hard for you.
That's crazy. You got to wait all that time, and then you might miss some of it.
That is true.
Right?
That is very true. I have been very. I think it was La La Land. I waited for La La Land for literally 3 or 4 hours, and they stopped 2 people before me.
Oh.
I remember that one because Gosling was here, and so was it Emma Stone?
Emma Stone, yeah.
So I remember waiting out next to the Princess of Wales because you never know if you're going to get in.
You know what annoyed me about Woman King was that after we got our tickets and we went in, we had to do bag searches, and I had my camera. And so you both went ahead and they held me because they had to ask if I could bring the camera in. So I was just standing there for a while. And eventually they're like, oh, it's fine, she can go. But then when I got to, I was going to follow you in. They were like, no, we need to wait for the new batch. So you were like the end of the old batch. So I stood out for like another few minutes, and I was so upset because I was like, I'm literally here already. So I missed more of the movie than I could have if I just went. Which is okay.
I wondered what happened to you. Actually, that was I kept looking around, and looking behind. I thought they sent you somewhere else. Like
no, they held me back for a few minutes, and then they let me go.
Okay. You know something else I learned, and this surprised me because this is unusual. I think it's unusual for the festival. I learned that they want us to be able, like, they want us to be able. They gave us the chance. Maybe that's what they said. They gave us the chance to laugh. That sounds so weird to say because I've seen comedies before. There were a lot of comedies this year.
Yeah.
At the film festival, surprising amount. I was looking at. Now I didn't see Bros, but of my list alone, there were at least 5, and I didn't know they were comedies when I saw them. Some of them, like I saw The End of Sex, and that was definitely a comedy, and I knew The Glass Onion was a comedy, but there were others in there that I had no idea, and it just seemed like it was a thing. I don't know if that's related to the pandemic. I wondered if maybe they were trying to help us blow off some steam, or maybe it just is a massive coincidence. But it was something that there seemed to be a trend of comedies this year that I didn't realize was going to be a thing. Because I mean, as you saw the films a lot. Oh, Blackening was another one. That movie was hilarious.
Yeah. Did you see it?
Yeah, we went and saw it on. Saw
yes,
the Friday or Saturday show. Friday show, and I thought it was great. It was really funny. But I mean, there's the film festival is always an opportunity to share stories, usually of hurt. I just was surprised at how many upbeat films there were this year in a lot of ways. I don't know if you guys saw a lot of those. I know we all saw Glass Onion, but I don't know if you saw any others that you would consider comedies. Not really.
I think Blackening was the only one I saw that was. Yeah.
Blackening was so good. It was really good. Oh, Weird Al was another one. Again, it's still shocking to me that Weird Al opened the Midnight Madness. Of all the films, it's not even that it was in it. It opened Midnight Madness. Um, but that is neither here nor there. Anything else you learned at the festival this year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Something I noticed, this is like going to be, no, two parts, is that like the festival is like glamorous or exclusive, but not really.
Mm.
In the sense that like sometimes, I think if I didn't live in Toronto and I was watching like red carpet interviews and saw pictures, it would look so like out of reach. But then being there, you're like, oh, these are just people. Like they're just human beings. But then at the same time, it's also a really big deal, especially for I think like people who like film and the actors and the filmmakers. Um, and I realize that it's a bigger deal for them than I think it is. Like I think to me sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, they just want to show off what they've done and wear nice outfits and take pictures. But then it seemed like the festival actually meant a lot to the people, like the filmmakers that were there and the actors that were there. And to me, it seemed like they made films about stories that they cared about and that they wanted the world to see. And so getting the chance to actually show it was something that meant a lot to them. And so that was something I noticed. And also the programmers too, I wrote that down. Like the programmers choosing what films to show, and they would talk about some of the films before the screenings. It's like these are films that were important to them. So it's not just like a glamorous Hollywood thing. It's like these stories matter to us, and so we want to show it to you, which was very interesting.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because well, I mean, we had our experience on the red carpet, and I mean, we interviewed was it
Max.
Max, and
Yeah.
he's like sure meant something to him. Now, mind you, he's 10 years old. It was his first time, but it was cool to see. He was just really excited to be there, and
Mhm.
but you're right. I mean, filmmakers are there, and we forget the reason they made that film is because it matters to them. Nobody entered a film into that film festival because they didn't care about what they were doing. And one of the things I learned, um, and I guess I've seen this before, but man, I saw it this year, um, is that the church has done damage.
That was my next point, Steve.
That's yours too?
Yeah.
You noticed that too?
Yeah.
I went through my list. There were 8 out of my 28 films that had some form of story that involved church trauma. For different community, I mean, Bones of Crows is an obvious one, but The Whale had that. Young Arsonists had that. There were a ton. It just kept coming up, and I mean, I was watching that and I was like, wow, because I think being involved in the church, we sort of look at things a certain way and we go, oh yeah, well, but you don't understand. But I all these stories are coming from people outside saying, this is what you did to me.
Mhm.
And man, that broke my heart. Broke my heart. But you said you heard the same thing. You felt the same thing, Shane.
Yeah, I only saw two with, well, obviously, two, obviously. I don't mean obviously like you didn't notice it. I mean like directly. Anyway, women talking and pray for our sinners. With which like pray for our sinners is a documentary, and women talking is fictional, but it's based on a real life story. So basically it's real as well. Um, so yeah, they were also directly dealing with women talking not so much about church, but like it was the Mennonite community, and these were things that I guess the church at that time in that place would teach them that would allow for like these forms of abuse to happen. Um, and then pray for our sinners was direct like something from the church happening.
Yeah, Women Talking, by the way, came in second. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, really
The
good
no,
film.
Fablemans took People's Choice. Women Talking came second. Glass Onion came third, which is amazing because Women Talking had a lot less screenings in smaller venues uh, than the other two films. So, um, and I know you said that you really liked that one.
I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Man. I mean, I saw lots of films about that involved residential schools, or LGBT. I sat down with the with Brendan Fraser and the writer of The Whale, and he wrote the play that the film was based on, and then he wrote the screenplay for the film. So I asked him a little bit because in that film, there's without giving anything away, there's a missionary character, and I sort of asked him. I said, what, about that, and one of the things he said was, "Well, I grew up in the church, and because I was gay, they couldn't handle me, and treated me like this." And it's just, you know, um, it breaks my heart, not because I sit there and say, "Oh, that's an isolated incident," but it's happened. Like it's a lot. There's a lot of different people telling these stories, and I know that this is what happened.
Hmm.
Um, it's that was a big one for me.
Yeah, it makes me think, I don't know, maybe it's a very lengthy discussion, but things like power and the abuse of power and the idea of power in the church.
Mm.
And then also I do believe that there are many factors to it. I think it's the thing of like religion, but like race and gender overlapping to create like the ultimate power. And then that person then like abusing that power. Because like women talking and pray for our sinners was a lot about women's issues and like children's issues. But women and children were the vulnerable parties in this situation, like, in these
Mhm.
two films. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I was just thinking about like why does that happen so much? Why does it happen so like often? And what is the pathway out of that, I guess?
I think there's, yeah, I don't know what the pathway out of it is. I think there's any number of reasons. Um, but and that is interesting too. You talk about that. You talk about race. You talk about gender, and you talk about sexuality. And a lot of times it's pointed at white men. And I'm not saying unjustly. It's not like this is where, and I'm not saying all white men are, I'm going to spiral off here. I don't mean to say anything like that. But I mean, when we look at the history of the church and power, you look at the most toxic voices, seems to be it. And
But you
um,
know what's funny is I was thinking about this as well because we say like it's the history of the church and it is. Um, but maybe because I'm Nigerian African, and I grew up in church in Nigeria, which like every church has its own issues. But coming out of that and then looking at like church here, for example, when we say the history of the church, it's not necessarily the church, it's the Western church.
that's
And so that's
interesting.
also a quantifier for me because I know like there are other churches in other parts of the world that I feel like we've never done that. Do you know what I mean? It's like so I don't know when we like slap God's name and stuff and be like, oh yeah, they did this in the name. Like they might thought they were doing it for God, but it was actually just for them and for like their idea of what the world is supposed to be.
Yep, yep, that's a great observation. Great observation, absolutely. Yeah, man, I never thought of that being about the West, but you're absolutely right too, for sure. Um, Anything else that we learned this year? I would actually like to explore what it means to come out of that, but I think that'll take us
Yeah.
far too long, and I would keep us tight.
Mhm.
Um, that'll be a conversation we can have on another day. But anything else that you learned this year at the festival? Either of you?
You have no idea what you're gonna see sometimes.
Hmm.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, like thinking about biosphere
I was waiting for you to talk about Biosphere.
and the happiest man on earth. And actually, a lot of the movie, even Bones of Crows, I didn't really know what I was about to see. And then, like, you get like a little description on Tiff, and then when you actually see it, it's like totally different. And then a lot of the movies, I tried seeing if there was a trailer, and a lot of them don't have trailers. Like it's pre-release. So it's exciting, and then can be kind of crazy too. But no, it was really cool. I think that I learned.
Yeah, that's a good one. I I remember having that conversation with Shay before the festival that you just honestly don't know what you're going to see. I picked Bones of Crows. The statement for Bones of Crows massively undersells Bones of Crows. Bones of Crows is brilliant. It's wonderful. It is one of the most traumatic and difficult films I've watched in many years. It's just really, really difficult to watch.
I think it was,
Um,
no, it was definitely my favorite movie out of the festival, and it had a lot to say, and especially nowadays.
mhm.
No, you're right. It definitely was undersold, like in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. They didn't, and I think it just says it tells the story of one woman's life, or from the
And
'60s
like,
onward, and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, oh, okay. It's that is not doing it justice. It's a powerful film, um, but you just truly never know. You never know what you're going to see.
I
Um,
think that also kind of sucks because then that means like a lot of people just won't see it.
mm,
Because I was like surprised that like the top picks were, was it like Glass Onion 1 second and stuff. I'm like, there was a lot of films that I would say would be more deserving of that spot. But then it is a people's choice, so that is subjective, I guess. But I do think if a lot of people saw like movies that were like Bones of Crows that weren't as hyped and didn't have like A-list cast, they
mhm.
would probably be pretty up there, I think, in terms of the choice awards and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Anything else, Shay?
Yeah, my final thing on my list was um I don't know, probably all tips are like this, but there's a lot of like culturally diverse films at the festival. And some of the ones I saw and like listening to the programmer speak, it seemed like a lot of the filmmakers, I call it like reclaiming culture through film, are like coming out with films now that are um not just like for their own people, but also trying to show the world kind of this is who we are,
Mm.
which I talk about in my interview that I did. But yeah, so there were a few diverse films and people just kind of using film to reclaim their culture and to showcase their culture to like a broader audience.
Absolutely. Is similar to that. One of the things that I learned as well. You talk about diversity. Indigenous stories I thought were very heavy this year as well, and I don't mean in tone. I just mean there were a lot of them, which is wonderful. Um, I love the fact that you were we've talked about this a bunch, but I mean you meeting you're and making friends with this Nigerian actor. I think that's awesome. That's so great, um, because you're right. They want to tell. They have one of these videos in the front of their thing. They want to tell as many people's stories as possible. And there are still people they that are missed, but they want. That's what TIFF's goal is. Like their tagline is changing the way you see the world through film, which is a fascinating tagline.
Yeah.
Um, but I respect that. I love that about it. I love that about it.
Yeah, there was sorry, I'm gonna say this quickly. When
Oh,
I
go ahead.
saw Hunt and the director came out, Lee Jung Jae, someone asked a question to him and said, well, yeah, your country has been through so much, and basically, how do you see your country moving forward? And I don't know if they meant it to come off as almost condescending, but that's how it sounded a little bit when they said it. And then he basically just replied that his answer was more of a thing of, oh, I'm just trying to show that just as like your country has issues, my country has issues, and we're trying to fix them. So it was almost like he was leveling the playing field. So it's not like you're looking at us, for example, as like the other, oh, look at them, they're so bad. It's more like we're all sharing our struggles and we're all trying to get through it. Which I thought was nice.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. That's amazing. My last thing I learned is that publicists deserve more credit. Shout out again to the publicists that helped us, but I learned a lot this year from the life of a publicist. Had some chance to sit down and talk with a few, and I understood. I learned how much people like, and I say like us, but people in our position treat them like garbage to try and get their way. They're just like bark at them all the time. Yeah, they treat them like dirt. I was sitting down with one, and she was like, "Well, I'm booking flights for our people now to Edmonton." I'm like, "Why?" Well, that what do you think I do? I'm like, I didn't know, but they were taking the film to the Edmonton Film Festival, and they had to book flights and hotels and do all that stuff. There's a lot of moving pieces that they take care of, and it so I it really they deserve more credit and they deserve a lot of grace because they're just the wheels are just always spinning. Speaking with the team from Elevation, just in their building, I was there a few days, and man, they're just always moving. It's amazing to me that how many plates they've got spinning, and so they deserve more credit. Shout out to the publicist.
Yeah.
Is there is a publicist gonna see this?
I don't know,
Oh.
but they I hope they do.
I think you know what else I learned. Um, and this is more of an observation, I guess. But like you mentioned, you saw the director just like walking, right? For the Nigerian one. I saw someone famous too, and it was in the Tiffbell Lightbox. I had just seen Soft, and it was that night. So like a good like 12, not 12, but like 6 hours later, they were just walking around in the Tiffbell Lightbox, and no one knew who they were. And I was like, oh my god, I gotta go talk to them. But I was in line for Knives Out, so I couldn't do it.
Who was
But
it?
it's the director and writer for Soft.
Oh, you just saw them just hanging out in the hallway.
Hanging out by himself, and he was just walking. He was like slowly walking out, and no one noticed. And I was like, "That's the he's wearing the same clothes. I gotta say something." And I didn't, but I was like, there's no one noticing this." Like, yeah, it was cool, but also it made me think, oh, I gotta keep an eye out for more famous people, I guess.
Yeah, I thought I saw Malcolm McDowell. If you don't know who that is, but anyway, he's an actor, and he was just standing there talking to people out on the street, and no one people just I just walked right past him, and I'm like, wait, I know who that is. I had this realization when I was watching the screening of like the Weird Al movie because the director came up, and I thought to myself, I thought I'd have no idea who you were if they hadn't put you on stage.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you're the director, great, but all of a sudden you put him on stage, and it's like I'd like to talk to you. But you're right, they're just hanging out because why would you recognize the director of Soft? You know,
It was
He's
the
only
same
about
with Michael Ward, who is in like Empire of Light, because he was in the Menu movie and he was walking out. We saw him just walking out of the movie, and he walked right in the middle of a crowd. And I was like, Michael, but nobody moved. And I was like, this is Michael, this is Michael Ward. And he was just eating a burger and going down the street.
that's fair. That's fair. Tiff's wild. Um, all right. Well, I think we learned a lot. Just before we wrap up, I would love to know, like, maybe your favorite film or two, and maybe a favorite moment.
I think my favorite film. I'll say it again. I've just been like standing over it for like since I saw it. But Bones of Crows was definitely my favorite. It's a story I think needed to be said, and I think it's something that actually should be shown or taught in schools. Actually, just like the history of residential schools, and then what is currently going on in modern day with the church and what's been happening, and then especially now, it's very relevant with like the water crisis in a lot of indigenous communities and like the lack of funding that's still going on. But yeah, definitely needed to be said. I said this quote in my review. I think it's out. It got taken out, but it was basically genocide, extra steps. But no, I like that a lot. And then I, this wasn't my first choice, but Sfagato was really good too. It's like about the gig economy in India. Definitely needs to be said as well, especially if work is getting paid so little. And then I highly recommend for all the viewers to watch Biosphere. It is really good. It's about so many amazing things. It's about change and like this idea of fluidity with your personality, who you are, and it's sci-fi. Highly recommend. If you watch any movie, watch that movie. Okay.
I mean, you're selling me on it, and I didn't see it. I heard your unfiltered review when you came out of it, so I'm intrigued by how far this pendulum is swung. So, Biosphere is your surprise pick.
And I would say my favorite moment is in Biosphere, but it's about halfway in the movie. You won't get it unless you watch the movie, but you'll know what scene I'm talking about if you're watching it. It's about halfway in. You'll love it.
Wow. Okay. All right, Shay.
Oh, favorite movies. I think I'm gonna list like a few of them. Just like
Go
Woman
ahead.
Talking is really good. The Woman King is really good. I have to say The King's Horseman is really good. I don't have to say it is really good, but I'm shouting it
Are you
out
being paid by the
as a
King's
Nigerian.
Horseman?
The King's Horseman is really good. Oh yeah, I think it's just those three. Oh, and Hunt. I loved Hunt a lot. It's a Korean action film. It was surprised. Like, I'm not a big action fan, but I really enjoyed it being there. So it was really good. And my favorite moment, I think it was the interviews I did. I only did two, but like the discussions I had with both parties were really interesting for me, and I hope for them too. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You know what I loved? I loved that other than a few overlapping, we all saw very different films. Like I think that that's so cool because we're coming and sharing these stories. Like I mean, I Jason really loved Biosphere. He's been
Really good.
talking about it nonstop since he saw it.
Really
But
good.
but I think it's kind of neat that we've all. I mean, it's a massive festival, so it's if we all wanted to see the same things, that'd be ridiculous. But I think it's very cool. My favorites, man, I love the whale. I love the Fablemans. I know JT is sort of lukewarm on that one,
I I didn't see the hype. I didn't get it.
but
I
you're all
think
up in Biosphere.
that's just really good. Like, there's so many great scenes, especially towards the end.
No, I like the Fablemans though because it was like Spielberg's telling
Would
this story, and it's sort of like he's 77 years old, and I mean he's still making really great quality work,
would
but
you
it's
have
sort of
liked
like I'm going to tell my own story while I got the chance. I just
would
thought that was
you
kind of cool.
yeah would you have liked it uh, if it wasn't based off his life?
You asked me that before. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I would have liked it because I thought the film was great, but I mean, there's something about it being him that I think adds to it. Um, I loved Glass Onion. I loved Bones of Crows, and I love. You know what I loved? I loved How to Blow Up a Pipeline.
Oh yes, yes.
That movie is excellent, and I was the last film I saw, and it snuck into my top five
Mm,
because I was just like,
good.
it's just so well done. Like it's relatively simple. It's a really effective thriller. It's like a heist thriller of a group of young people that want to well do what they say. They want to blow up a pipeline. And you're learning their motivations. It's just really well executed. It was good. The swearing jar was good. A whole bunch of I'm gonna end up listing the whole thing. I'm not, but I mean those were like my top movies. My favorite moment, I said before, I loved any chances that I got to spend with you guys sharing and sort of working out how the I love that. It felt good for me to sort of pass that on. I'd be kidding myself if I didn't say one of my favorite moments was sitting with Brendan Fraser and the writer director of The Whale. That was really cool. What a great conversation. Um, yeah, I mean, there were a lot of there were. It was a very positive festival for me. but I think that was sort of the big moment. I was really thrilled we got into Woman King
Yeah.
because anytime you win at a rush line, it feels like a win. Um,
And like
but
the volunteers applauding you as you come down.
yeah, it's like you win the lottery, right? They're like, "Oh, good for you, you did it." Because that is a long lineup, and there were not a lot more people that got in after we did.
Mm.
I saw the price when we came in for the rush line. I think it was $45
Yep,
to be like the press.
it was a premiere.
That's a
That
lot
was
of
more
money.
expensive than that.
Is more?
I don't know about the rush line price.
I think it was $45. Like I saw it. I remember seeing it.
It might have been.
And that's insane for a rush line.
Well, they're still charging you the same amount. You're still going to
Oh,
the premiere.
yeah.
Um, but if you rush line the non premiere, I think it's 25.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, no, it's true. It's pricey. It's pricey.
I thought that was insane because it was a rush, but then I guess if that's the same price you walk in as, that's not too bad because it's still the premiere. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty standard, I think.
I mean, they can definitely charge that. Like people will show up and go. But I just thought it was nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know what was one of my favorite moments? I will say this, and it's not going to be what it sounds like, but I just thought it was fun. Was Harry Styles, and I don't care about seeing Harry Styles at all, but just to the experience the madness of people who did, it was really kind of fun to be there for that. Um,
My friends are surprised I wasn't one of those. I'm surprised I wasn't one of those. But I think I've matured over the past year. I'm just
Know what movie?
I've grown up. I invited you to join me.
yeah, but I had to go see a movie, so I couldn't.
Well, I put in a good word for you with him, and I said to somebody, they said, "Oh yeah, who's that? Who did you see?" I said, "Oh, Prince Harry." They said he was there. I thought he would have been at the. No, no,
The other
no.
one.
Oh, here the other one. They were so confused. I just assumed it was his nickname. Anyway, um, but just to be there in that moment, it made me laugh.
Mm.
Oh, anyway. Well, thank you all. Thank you both so much for all your hard work. I really do appreciate it. We had a great year. We had a lot of fun. And now we're for you at home. You can go on the website and check out our YouTube channel. You can check out the podcast. There are tons and tons and tons of interviews and reviews that are still coming out. So please watch for that. We're wrapping that up over the next few days, but there's a lot of great coverage there for films like Biosphere that you may be interested in finding out about. But again, thank you, Shay. Thank you, Jason. And for you at home, we started the conversation. This was ScreenFish.